For decades, millions of Americans have welcomed Al Roker into their living rooms each morning on Today, trusting his steady voice to guide them through hurricanes, blizzards, and bright spring dawns. But what most never see is the heavy silence that greets him after the studio lights dim and the cameras glide away, a silence that has grown more profound with age and loss, especially in the quiet spaces of his Manhattan apartment where the city hums outside, but inside there is only reflection, memory, and the gentle presence of his wife, Deborah Roberts, who has long understood that the man who makes America smile carries stories that do not fit neatly into a 3-minute segment. For those in their 60s who have buried parents, comforted friends, or quietly folded a loved one's sweater for the last time, Al's journey feels familiar, because grief at this stage of life is less a storm and more a tide, persistent and reshaping the shoreline of the heart. And he has come to realize that the hardest moments are not when he is reporting on tragedy, standing in floodwaters, or speaking solemnly about lives lost, but when he returns home, loosens his tie, and feels the echo of conversations he can no longer have, the advice he wishes he had asked for, the laughter that once filled holiday tables, now reduced to stories retold with a softness that both warms and wounds. Deborah, seasoned by her own years in journalism, recognizes the look in his eyes on certain evenings, that distant gaze that signals he is replaying the day's interviews with families who have suffered, and she does not rush to fix it, because at their age, love is less about solutions and more about presence, about sitting together in shared understanding, about knowing when silence itself is the most faithful companion. Al has often said that weather teaches humility, no one commands the wind, but grief has taught him something deeper, that control is an illusion and acceptance is a discipline. And as he has navigated health scares and personal losses in recent years, he has felt the quiet recalibration that many men of his generation experience, a shedding of the old belief that strength means stoicism, replaced by the gentler wisdom that strength can look like vulnerability, like admitting on air that a story touched him, like allowing viewers to see not just the broadcaster, but the human being who understands what it means to sit at a hospital bedside at dawn. For those who have spent 40 years building careers and families, who now find themselves attending more memorial services than weddings, Al's reflections carry a particular resonance because he does not dramatize sorrow, nor does he minimize it. He speaks of it as something woven into the fabric of living, as inevitable as the seasons he has chronicled. And when he walks through Rockefeller Plaza before sunrise, greeting crew members half his age, he sometimes thinks about how quickly the decades have passed, how the young weatherman with boundless energy has become an elder statesman of morning television, entrusted not only with forecasts, but with steadiness, with continuity in a world that feels increasingly unmoored. Deborah often reminds him that their shared life, raising children, juggling assignments, enduring separations during breaking news, has prepared them for this reflective chapter. And in the evenings, they talk about legacy not in terms of ratings, but in terms of kindness, about the notes from viewers who say his warmth helped them through chemotherapy or widowhood, about the responsibility that comes with being a familiar face in uncertain times. And in those conversations, the silence after the cameras stop feels less oppressive and more sacred, a pause that allows gratitude to surface alongside grief. There are nights when Al scrolls through old photographs, seeing parents and mentors frozen in younger versions of themselves, and he feels the peculiar ache of remembering voices he can no longer call. Yet he also senses their imprint in his own gestures, in the way he comforts a colleague or cracks a joke to ease tension, and he understands that mourning is not about clinging to what was, but about carrying forward what mattered most. For an audience standing at the threshold of retirement or already there, contemplating what remains in what has been lost, his story offers a quiet reassurance that the later chapters of life are not merely about diminishment, but about distillation, about discovering which relationships endure when the spotlight fades, about recognizing that love deepens even as circles grow smaller. He has confessed to Deborah that sometimes the applause feels fleeting compared to the simple act of sitting together with a cup of tea, listening to the muted sounds of the city, and she smiles because she knows that this awareness is hard-won, earned through years of deadlines and departures, through funerals attended between broadcasts, through learning that grief does not disqualify one from joy, but rather sharpens it, making laughter more precious, making ordinary mornings feel like quiet miracles. And so when viewers see Al offering a reassuring grin as storm clouds gather on the horizon, they are also witnessing a man who has made peace with his own internal weather, who has accepted that the heavy silence after the cameras stop is not an enemy but a teacher, inviting him to remember, to feel, to honor those who shaped him, and to step back into the light each dawn not untouched by sorrow, but strengthened by it, carrying within him the understanding that in the end, what sustains us is not the brightness of the studio, but the steadfast presence of those who sit beside us when the world grows quiet. And in that stillness, he has found a deeper forecast, one that promises that even after loss, even after the longest night, morning comes again.